Mike?
Good evening.
Hi, Mr. Flaherty.
The growth, the gains in special ed, what would you attribute that to?
I think it was, if I had to guess, but I don't like to guess, I think the most influential thing was ensuring that the children stayed inside the classroom for core instruction, that they were not taking out of the classroom for the core instruction. By that I mean, if there is a math class going on, the special education teacher has to do pull-outs, you know, because of the grid. So they should take those children out of their regular learning class, give them their instruction according to the IEP, and then the child would go back in. What happens now is the child stays in the math class with the special education instructor in there, or the ELA, whichever class it happens to be. They learn alongside their peers, and then they come out for that additional service. And we also do clustering. And by clustering, I mean when we do our intervention groups, if it happens to be a special education teacher instructing that intervention group, we don't just limit that group to special education students. Any student who has a weakness in that certain skill or that concept is going in that group. You do not need a piece of paper at the Decas school to receive additional instruction or help in a certain area. And I think that's something that I really need to communicate with parents at open house. RTI means that every student in that school is getting what they need, even if that child is higher functioning and can do advanced work. So although the grid tells me that our children need 40 minutes on the grid, I assure you that your child is probably getting much more than the 40 minutes with RTI.
So you think?
I believe it's that the children were learning alongside their peers and that they were exposed to the regular education curriculum.
And you mentioned the interventionists, and that is paying off. I mean, it's only been implemented pretty minimally, right, at this point at Decas?
It's been in an informal way, I believe, Jan, for how long? 3 years?
We've had the structure for 3 years,
But
but the intensive training just this year.
the know-how, that's what makes the difference.
Thank you. All right. You mentioned earlier about being more transparent and but one of the and candid and such, and one of the things, frankly, that's always impressed me is how candid you are, and I noticed that in the superintendent too. You're both very candid, and I'm going to read. It's page 10 of your improvement plan. One of the impact statements related to student performance. It says, the John W. Decas achievement scores in this area of ELA have declined every year, with the exception of one, since the 2005 MCAS assessment. Cross-comparison of this data indicates that there is a correlation between an increase in the subgroup category of free and reduced lunch and the declining MCAS scores in ELA. And in the parenthetical, you put 39% in 2005 to a high of 54% in 2012. And I don't think it gets any more candid than that. I mean, we talk about free and reduced lunch all the time, but this is making a direct claim based on data.
There is a correlation there, and it's research-backed. It's not Mrs. Panarese's opinion.
Right.
That's why there's a subgroup. That's why there's a subgroup free and
Yeah.
reduced lunch, is because that correlates strongly with students that don't achieve as much. Now, you have to understand that Decas School, historically, has never been the type of school that has seen these numbers. So when you have a staff that is very used to instructing students a certain way, and it works, to be able to instruct students who have additional needs, and students on free and reduced lunch and students with exceptionalities have additional needs, because I believe both of those figures have grown, we need to take a step back and say, do we really have the capacity or the knowledge to be able to teach these students in an effective manner? And so that transition never really took place because it was very sublime over a period of time. But now when we look at it and we can see those percentages, because I went into the school and honestly, can we all improve? Absolutely. And I can find where you need to improve. I have no problem picking that out too, and I'm sure my teachers have no problem picking out where I can improve either, by the way. But, so, we know that we can all improve, but there was nothing that glaring, nothing that would make me say, why isn't this school moving? So what's wrong here? So I had to dig further, and I really did. And again, this is my hypothesis. I really do believe that you need a certain amount of training to be able to competently instruct students of free and reduced lunch of this magnitude inside the regular education classroom. I don't think that our teachers had that ability until we had the RTI and the differentiation instruction. Now we have the tools. So now I believe that we can do this.
All right, so that actually segues to my next point. Now we have the tools. And actually, I was reviewing the budget preview meeting that happened December 20th. I've got it on DVD. And at that time, you're going through your budget requests, and you're looking to convert, 2 half-time interventionists to 2 full-time. You're looking for $62,000 in the ELA series books, first year. That's the first year payment. And you basically you couldn't fathom the loss of one teacher. All right, never mind what we're looking at right now. All right. And so I've got this quote here. And this is what this is your comments on the adequacy of the budget you submitted. And it said, this is what we need to give our children an adequate, just adequate, not even off the charts, an adequate education. All right? And that was then, before we looked at cutting everything. And now we're at overrides. We're looking for textbooks and technology. Mm-hmm. And when we discuss this in public, sometimes we're accused of using scare tactics and hyperbole. And I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but I mean, if these don't go through, all these gains you've made and all the goals you have, I mean, how much in jeopardy are they?
They're very much in jeopardy. You need to be able to have adequate staffing. Money and resources, it's only as good if it's specifically directed to the intervention that counts for children's learning. But you need your staff. And as we all know, my staff has been devastated, especially at Decas, because my staff happens to be the staff that is lower seniority. So it's hard because it's working as a team, and it's working for one common goal, and it's having people buy in. Human capacity and instruction is very difficult to replace. The training that's involved, the time, the investment that we have in our staff. You can't just bring in another person and plop that person inside that grade level. That's right. It's not going to work. It's going to impact the culture. Teacher movement is detrimental to student achievement. So even though I'm going to get maybe another, I've already lost three staff members. So even though I may get this back with this override, I will still be at risk as a school because teacher movement, again, research-wise, brings down achievement. So we need to be able to stabilize. I'm trying to stabilize a school that has not been stabilized. And it's gone through a lot of principals, but I need the opportunity for my staff, and I know the board can only do so much. My superintendent and my directors can only do so much. But the townspeople have got to step up now. They're the ones that need to make that choice and say, I don't want that school to flounder anymore. They're on their way. And we are. And we don't need, our legs taken out from underneath us.
And it's funny, well, not funny at all, but interesting that you say take your legs out from underneath us, because so often I hear my colleague, Dr. Sylvia, refer to the systematic dismantling of our schools, and I would say that Decas in particular, where you've got so many teachers that are potentially not going to come back, and some that already have gone, I see it as frankly a crippling blow. I do. It
is, but I can't use that as an excuse not to keep pushing forward. And my staff won't either. I can't allow that. I can't go into a new school year hopeless. I have to believe that we can do it. I do.
Mr. Chair,
That's all I've got.
You all set?
yes,